Okay, I'll call this village board meeting for June 4th, 2018 to order. Roll call, please.
Joe Zitzelsberger.
Here.
Sam Ballwig.
Here.
Sue Springman.
Here.
Bill Ranum. Chris Zellner.
Here.
Phil Willems. Aaron Moran.
Okay, confirmation of open meeting compliance. Julie?
I can confirm that the meeting was publicly posted. The official notices were provided to the newspaper, and it was made available online.
Okay. Then we've got consent agenda. Is there anything that people would like pulled or look for a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Sam Ballwig, second by Sue Springman. Any other comments? Call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Public comment. Is there anybody here that would like to address the board on any issue that's not on the agenda?
Yes. Mary Heinbecker.
Mary Heibecker, 306 West 3rd Street. I just wanted to let you guys know that the Friends of Waunakee group have a Clean the Creek plan for Saturday, June 9th at 9:30. We're meeting in the village park by the bridge. Dress appropriately and bring work gloves and the boots. And the Public Works are giving us the garbage bags to use.
What was the date again?
June 9th
Saturday.
at 9:30. It's this coming Saturday. That's all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Todd, anything for you tonight?
I think I just make mention that this past Friday, Aaron, welcome, and Joe and I attended the League of Wisconsin Municipalities Elected Officials 101 workshop. It's particularly designed as a primer for newly elected local officials. It was great to be there with both of them. I think we got some nuggets. I shared some with Chris earlier, and did you say I didn't know that, or I maybe knew that, or I'm putting you on the spot. No, it was an amazing amount of information about meeting, how to function in local government.
Perfect, thank you. Joe and Aaron, you both do look wiser after it. Just kidding, you're all good, all good.
A lot of things.
All good. I know it was covering a lot of stuff, so, good. All right, next we've got license and permits. I'm gonna go right to Julie. Do I need to read each one of these, or?
No.
Okay.
I'll just get started by saying that under our old agenda management system, we could have one item. Under a new one, we can't. So you can certainly make one motion to approve all of them, subject to the motion language that we've provided for you. All of them are renewals, with the exception of Mr. Brew's Tap House. It's half a renewal and half new. They currently hold a Class B beer license and a Class C wine license, and they have requested to eliminate the wine license and switch it to a Class B liquor license, so it would be beer and alcohol.
Okay, could you explain, because we do have some new board members and people in the audience that might not know about the liquor license rules, but how that works as far as how many each community is allotted, and then what it means past that?
Sure. Just a little general information, a Class A license is for consumption away. So a Class B or a Class A license would be something that Walgreens or a gas station would have. You would buy it and consume it away. A Class B license is, you can think of it as a bar. It's a place where you're gonna go and consume it there. Now, there are two types of Class B licenses. There's a Class B beer, and there's a Class B alcohol. You cannot have a Class B alcohol without a Class B beer, but you can have a Class B beer without a Class B alcohol. So Mr. Brews, up until now, has only served beer and wine with a Class C wine license. Class C wine license is only for restaurants that have so many tables for seating so many people. So not everybody can get a Class C wine license. They've desired, and Greg is here, he can explain, they're desirous of having some higher end bourbons, sipping bourbons, things of that nature to sell along with their wide selection of beer. This Class B liquor license would allow them to also serve wine. So wine comes along with the liquor. Back in 1997, the Tavern League lobbied the legislature to include in their budget bill some language that limited the number of Class B combination licenses that a municipality could have. In other words, you can have, the village can approve as many Class B beer licenses as they want, but once you have a combination Class B beer and liquor, you're limited to the number that you issued on December 1st of 1997. And then there was a calculation to give you some extra ones beyond the number that you had issued. And those are called reserve licenses, and they cost a minimum of $10,000 initial. It's not every year, but it's an initial $10,000, and it's a minimum amount. So the board has the latitude to raise that amount if they wanted to. We have, at last count, 16 of those $10,000 licenses available.
Based on population?
Based on population. Up until last year, we could give the $10,000 back in the form of an economic development grant. Last year, the law changed, could no longer give the $10,000 back. So if the village issues one of those, the village has an extra $10,000.
And how many of them do we have right now available without $10,000 down?
We have none of it. Well, we have one available, the one that Mr. Bruce is applying for.
Okay, which came from?
Came from the Newell Gallery. You're all wondering why the Newell Gallery had a Class B liquor license for a bar. At the time that the Newell Gallery opened, there were no other licenses available. No other ways for Barb Newell to sell wine in gift baskets. So she applied and received a Class B combination license. So when she closed her doors last year, hers became available. And you may remember earlier this spring, she requested a reimbursement, and then she surrendered her license. So even though she closed her doors, she still held the license until she actually surrendered it.
Okay, so for this license, there's no charge for this one, is that correct?
It's the same price as everybody else pays. So if someone were to apply for one of the reserve licenses, they pay the $10,000 and the $600 fee that goes along with the Class B combination. A Class B beer is $100, a Class B liquor is $500. So they pay the $10,000 plus $600.
Okay,
Couple of questions. So for the Newell license, if those were in gift baskets, those would be away, would they not?
They would, but she was also offering testings, taste testings.
Okay.
And there was no provision for her to be able to do that. So if she wanted to sell a bottle and somebody wanted to know what it tasted like before, that was the only way she could do it.
Okay.
And the law has changed numerous times since she opened, but under the new scenario, she wouldn't qualify for that kind of a license.
And then Class A, is that separated beer and liquor as well? Or?
It is.
Okay.
Yep, there's a Class A beer and a Class A liquor. You can't get the liquor without the beer, again, but you can get the beer without the liquor. And we have, I don't believe we have any that are just Class A beer anymore. All of our Class A's are Class A combinations, beer and liquor.
And then is there any provision for increasing the number of licenses as the community grows?
The reserve license is the only
That's the only
provision.
thing. Okay.
And it's with every 500 increase in population, we get another one. So from 1997, we've grown a lot. That's why we've acquired so many additional reserve licenses.
So if somebody were to come in, pay the $10,000 and get their license, they go out of business, is the next person in paying that same $10,000
Yes.
again? Okay.
Yep. Every license that's issued has a number that goes along with it. So let's say if Newell Gallery had applied for a license last year and it was license 1, As long as they renew, they always have license one.
Okay.
And then when license one becomes available, then the next person would get license one.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, what would our motion need to look like, or do we need to do separate with Mr. Bruce?
No, I'm prepared, if you're willing, to have you make a motion to approve all of the licenses as they have been presented in your packet. The language for each motion is very long, and it includes all of the Plan Commission's restrictions and the details about their premise. So unless you want to read all of them, I would be more than willing to create the motion from the language we've provided.
Any problems with board members for doing one motion?
Is that items 1 through 20 or 1 through 22?
1 through 20.
Okay.
I'd move approval of licenses 1 through 20 as presented in our packet. Second?
Okay, motion by Susan, second by Aaron. Any other comments? Okay, call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
Okay. What I neglected to mention before is that the annual licensing period starts July 1 and ends June 30. So all of the applicants that you just approved have to either renew or come in with new applications for operators. Operator license applications, maybe I haven't explained before, but this allows a person to sell, serve, and work by themselves. So anyone that is granted an operator license can be in the establishment by themselves. That does not prevent other people from working. They would be under the supervision and the view of anybody who is a licensed operator. So the applications that are in your packet have been reviewed, again, by the police department and subject to our policy for operator license approval. And all of them on the list that's been provided in your packet have been recommended for approval, subject to successful completion of an approved beverage server training course. The reason we include that in the motion is that a person doesn't have to have completed the class when they apply. They just have to show us that they've signed up for the class. So we always include that caveat at the end of the motion, just in case some of those individuals were included in the approval.
Okay. Any questions, or you'd look for the motion, the recommended motion?
I'll move to approve operator license applications for all the applicants listed on the attached roster, subject to successful completion of an approved responsible beverage server training course.
Okay, motion by Joe Zutzelberger. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Susan Springman. Any other comments? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. One more.
Yep, the next item, you probably are wondering why we didn't just include them in the list above. After review by the police department and being provided an opportunity to appear before the police committee, these two individuals have been recommended for denial based on our policy for operator license approval. So staff would recommend that the board take action to deny them.
Any questions or look for motion on that?
The confidential information was included in your packet for your review. It was not in the public packet, but it was provided for you.
I move, oh, go ahead.
I'll move to deny an operator license application for Maureen Houlihan and James Holdner, subject to the village's policy for review of operator license applications.
Motion by Joe Zutzelberger,
Second.
second by Aaron Moran. Any other comments? Call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. You're off the hook now, Julie.
Thank you.
Okay. Discuss and take action on petition to discontinue that portion of a public alley located between Madison Street and Water Street in the village of Waunakee.
I'll take that. As part of the Hubley project, the village needs to formally vacate the alley between Madison Street and Water Street. So the proposed cross street will take the replacement of that alleyway. We had a discussion at the Plan Commission. A couple of people pointed out there's concerns about the timing of the cross street compared to the alley. And certainly would have been our preference to do the cross-street extension prior to vacating the alley, but we didn't have the funds available in order to accomplish that the year prior. I think there's also some concerns about lighting that we've agreed to take a look at in trying to make it more pedestrian-friendly as we can during the construction process. With that, the Plan Commission unanimously recommended approval.
Do you want to share what the local businesses that were around there with the petition?
And in fact, included in your packet, which is, wasn't a requirement, but we actually had petitions signed by all the property owners except for one between Bacon Street and Madison Street. The only one that didn't sign was the Huffbrow House, and that property is still in a little bit of flux.
What's the timeline for the cross-street extension? Look like
Yeah, we
it-
talked about that a little bit too. So the demo should have started either late this afternoon or tomorrow morning. So that'll be over the next couple of weeks. But it's a good portion of the summer. It's a pretty complicated project in terms of relocating some utilities, the sewer and water and electric, and then reconstructing a sewer line or removing it and actually putting it in another place, all the way down to the siphon that goes underneath 6 Mile Creek. Somebody else asked if there'd be updates on the cross street, and there will be. We always have construction updates on all our projects on the website posted, typically on a weekly basis.
Okay. Any other comments? Always look for a motion.
I move we approve the petition to vacate the alleyway.
Okay, motion by Susan Springman,
Second.
second by Joe Zitzelberger. Any other comments? Call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Under old business, we've got discuss and take action on Occupied Development Agreement municipal revenue application. Are we going into closed here?
I don't think we'll need to unless the board cares to. So I can introduce it and we can take it from there.
Okay.
As I mentioned, I don't think we'll necessarily need to go into closed session. The form of the development agreement was in the public packet, so it's been available to the public as well as the village board. The terms of this agreement, which essentially kind of combines the prior development agreement, right, Brian? Or does it establish?
Separate.
Establishes a new separate one?
Correct.
Accomplishes the goals that the village board identified for staff, the negotiating parameters for us in your prior closed session. At your last meeting, you had an open session presentation by Isaac Shawaki from Octopi. At that meeting, we all get a sense for the success of his business, but the lack of the facility now to contain that success. So there's plans to expand, which we're excited about. And we also have approval from MLG, which is a party to this agreement, being that they own the land in that park and the covenants in that area, but they've agreed to the form of the agreement that's in your packet as well. So it's a three-party agreement, Village, Octopi, and MLG. And if I could, I think I'll ask just Brian to walk through the parameters of that agreement and explain how it jives with the negotiating parameters you had given us.
Sure, so the agreement that's in your packet for this board meeting is very similar to the agreement that was in your packet for the last board meeting. I'll just briefly explain the changes. One of them is for Octopi, Octopi Brewing LLC operates the facility, but a different organization called Ileana Lola is actually the owner of the property, and so they're associated with one another. We needed to make them to be a party of the agreement too, since they own the land. So there were some major changes that were made as a result of that, but that I would call that more procedural in nature rather than substantive. We added language to the agreement that on page 4 that talks about the developer shall have no outdoor storage on the property except to the extent outdoor storage is approved by the Plan Commission for the site plan for the expansion project, which I think is consistent with what the village board had talked about at the last meeting. We added language, with our, this is another pay-go development agreement where there's no risk to the village on having to make any payments. When we do these, we typically put a cap on the amount of money that could be paid to the developer based on the increment generated from the project. Here, the cap is $250,000, which is the amount that was identified as the gap by Ehlers and Associates. I think it would be great if they were able to reach the $250,000. I think based on the analysis that we've done and the work and the expansion of the project, it's probably unlikely that they're gonna hit that amount, but if they do, that's, you know, that's still consistent with what the village's financial consultant had identified. The other change to the document is on it's the last section, and it's on page 13. And before I say anything further, Village Bond Council has already reviewed this document and the municipal revenue obligation and approved them, so we don't need to worry about getting approval. So we have, Todd referenced the initial development agreement, and the initial development agreement with Octopi, similar to this document, was a pay-go, so there was no risk for the village at all. And the increment that was going to be generated during the life of the district, the payment was capped at $310,000. Now, based on some work that Renee has done, it does not appear that Octopi will reach that cap based on the assessment of the property. And so we kind of have two situations here. One, the original development agreement, and now the second development agreement, where we have a cap that's justified based on the financial analysis, but it doesn't look like the projects will allow, the initial project and the expansion will allow the developer to reach that cap. And so just in case there was a scenario where, and the other thing I should say is, the village does not assess this property, it's manufacturing, I believe, which means the state assesses the property. And so if the state were to make a change in how it assesses manufacturing property, such that one phase of the project got a bump from that, our thought process was, you know, we have two agreements that ultimately could allow a payment of $560,000. And so if one of the, you know, it's unlikely to happen, but if something were to happen where one portion of the project got a bump by the assessment and not the other, there is the potential for the sharing. You know, basically what we've agreed in this section 17 is the total cap for the project is $560,000. But if we do reach a unique situation in the future where maybe one of the projects could share increment with the other, we'll sit back down with the developer and we'll work something out on that issue. Again, I think that's consistent with the discussion that you had last week. If we need a total cap on the payment, but we're also willing to do whatever the gap is that the financial consultant has identified.
Board members, any questions? So for the general public, we're pretty much at the time where this TIF district's gonna be at its useful life for any other.
Yeah, today actually is the last day that the village board can approve an expense for that district, whether it be an incentive or a public project whatsoever.
And then you have 5 more years left.
Which is what we had anyways, whether we were.
Correct. You've not, yes, there's been no extension to this district.
Okay. Any other comments, or I'd look for a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the development agreement and municipal revenue obligation between the Village of Waunakee and Octopi Brewing.
Motion by Sam Bohig,
There was a second sentence, I just didn't need to read it.
Second.
second by Aaron Moran. Any other comments? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. One
Do you
last
want
one.
Isaac to sign?
Yeah, we need
Adjourn?
some-
Isaac,
Stick
Motion
around.
stick around
Motion to adjourn.
to sign?
Sue's got it. Sue's made a motion to adjourn, second by Sam Bohig. Any other comments? Call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Sue and Sam?
Motion to adjourn. Julie, did you get that?
Yep, I did.